And it begins. Finally, they have come up with some regulatory framework for digital assets. We've been waiting a while for this. Not having regulation in the United States is really starting to hurt the crypto market. Nobody knows really where they stand. We're not sure who the SEC is going to sue next because there are no clear guidelines for crypto assets in the US. I'm going to go through this and just give you the 30,000 foot view of what they're talking about, what they're looking at going forward, and kind of a time frame to expect when these things are actually going to be enacted and signed into law, and they're going to start cracking down on you and your crypto. Also, if you stay to the end of this video, I'm going to tell you Binance got some bad news today, and we're going to go through that a little bit. So let's dig right into this thing. Hello everyone, my name is Sean. I'm the Crypto Smith. Welcome back to the channel. If you could do me the smallest of favors and just hit that like button and a subscribe if you want to see more content, it really helps me grow my channel, and for that, I appreciate you. First of all, let's get started with some market overview. Right, the market currently, we're still sitting at $1.26 trillion. We really are just hovering around this same value for weeks now. We are stuck. Right, we are stuck. I don't think we're really going to go anywhere until the overall market conditions improve, whether we hear the all clear bell that inflation is slowing down, gas prices are still on the rise. Everybody's in a panic. Nobody wants to spend their money. And I understand it, right? It's a little scary out there. We probably have many more months to go before we can see anything positive happen. May even be after the midterm elections, but we will see. What is Bitcoin doing? Bitcoin is just bouncing. It is range bound. This is what we call range bound. It is just bouncing in and out of here, the $28,000 to $32,000 mark. At some point in the future, the bears or the bulls are going to capitulate, and whoever blinks first is going to lose. And we're either going to go up from here and get back into the 40s and the $50,000 range, or we're going to break down and probably not land until we hit in the $19,000 to $20,000 range. So that's where it stands now. It's not all great news, but it's not all bad news either, right? We're still hanging out, even though every day, these large influencers, news channels say, oh, Bitcoin's back in, once it goes up, Bitcoin's, back on the bull run, 100,000, right around the corner. And then the very next day, it just comes right back down and say, oh my gosh, Bitcoin's crashing. Everybody's going to lose, jump out of the market. You can't tell what's going to happen day to day. You cannot determine what the market is doing one day at a time, right? You have to zoom out, right? We need to zoom out, and we need to see the big picture here to really determine where we're at and where we're headed, right? So I'm still positive about the crypto market overall. I think it's going to get better. Hang in there, people, all right? So let's get to this. Loomis Gillibrand introduce landmark legislation, which it really is, because we haven't done anything before. We had President Biden sign an executive order saying basically we just need to look at things, right? And they need to form committees, and we need to have memos created, and there needs to be money spent on studies, right, and surveys. There's no regulation, there's no laws passed. There's nothing to tell crypto right now that, hey, you're within the law, you're okay, or hey, you're outside the law, you need to bring yourself into compliance, or there's going to be some sort of punishment. So here is what this says today. And we're just going to go through just the basics here. Right now you have two agencies. You have the SEC, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission, and then you have the CFTC, which is the Commodities and Futures Trading Commission. Those are the two regulatory authorities that are kind of battling it out right now. There's a little turf war going on to see who's going to get to regulate these markets. This bill right now is assuming that most of the crypto projects out there, crypto companies, are in the commodities category, and some of them are going to be deemed as securities, right, as we see going forward. Now, this is not actual regulatory law, right? This is just the first step. This is going to go through several revisions. There's going to be different groups of senators and congressmen that are going to get involved in this, and they're going to hash out a lot of revisions. So it's really not going to look anything like this by the time they get done and they actually get ready to pass this. just think about that going forward, and everything that it says in here isn't really what it's going to say in the final draft. Just keep that in mind as we go through this. So they're going to determine which regulatory agency has authority over which crypto asset. And that's going to come out, right? That's not determined yet, but they're going to determine that. This is going to set some clear definitions of digital assets, because there really isn't anything today. Even though the SEC says it's very clear, there is no real regulation or rules for crypto assets to follow. So they just sue them if they think they're out of compliance, and that's how they regulate, right? Regulate by enforcement. That's what they call that. And it's a really bad way to do things. Number 3, they're going to create requirements for stable coins. So stable coins, and if you've been in this market at all over the last month or so, we had Stellar Luna, UST, crash hard and take out billions of dollars out of the market and ruin people's lives. That was an algorithmic stable coin. Okay, going forward, once this thing is all said and done, there will be no place for algorithmic stable coins in the US in the future. This says all of the stable coins are going to be used have to have a one-to-one asset backing that stable coin, which guarantees, as a US citizen, if I'm using that to store my crypto or my gains, then I'm guaranteed that I'm going to be able to get my money out of that, right? So basically, just like putting your money in the bank says through their FDIC insurance program that you are guaranteed your money up to a certain dollar amount, and that's what regulation does in banking. They look to do the same thing for stable coins on crypto assets. They're going to study energy consumption, right? So this is taking into account all of the mining type of cryptos out there, Bitcoin being one of them, on what type of energy use is used. Is it good for the market? Is it good for the country? And how obviously they can minimize use going forward. This next one here is really, I think, a bad idea and not my favorite going forward. They want to provide a regulatory sandbox for state and federal regulators to collaborate on innovative financial technologies. What this means is they want, if you're bringing a project in the crypto space in the US and it's new and it's a new technology, they want you to bring it to them in a minimal format and a controlled setting so they can test it and see how it works, and then they could get together in groups and decide whether it's good for crypto or whether it's actually a viable product or service. Now, here's the problem with that. As we all know, the government is literally good at nothing. So you're going to take your new crypto project to them. There's going to be lobbyists that are out there, and these lobbyists are going to be lobbying for very large crypto projects and companies in the US and outside of the US, and they're going to be giving money to your senators and your congressmen, and those people are going to be voting and deciding on which crypto projects are good and which are bad. So what do you think is going to happen when your project sits before a group of senators or congressmen, and they're all going to decide on whether one of their constituents' competitors is going to get a green light or not, right? That's the problem with this idea of a regulatory sandbox. I'm not really sure what that means. It means they get to play with it and see what it does, and they get to decide whether they think it's good or not, right? Which is frankly stupid. So this is one thing I really don't like in it, but it is what it is. This may not last. Let's keep going. They're going to provide a structure for taxes, right? They need a workable structure for taxation of the digital assets. Now, this is obvious. They want to tax whatever they can when they can. And that makes sense to me. We live in the US. We live in a world of taxes, and we have laws we have to follow. So they're going to start to spell out like where the taxes start and where they end, just like taxes on income and just like taxes on other assets. What types of things are they already considering securities, right? So DAOs, which are decentralized autonomous organizations, which provide a return on your money. And now when I say decentralized, these are normally not run by anybody. They are created and they run on their own. So I'm not sure how they're going to rein that in, or they're just going to say those are no longer available to U.S. citizens. Exchanges also are going to have to be registered with the SEC because they're selling assets, and some of those assets may be securities. Stable coins obviously are going to have to register and provide actual proof of their backed assets. And most DeFi projects, so anything that has a return, anything that gives you any kind of ROI, any kind of profit sharing, dividends, right? That's really what DeFi is right now. Those things are going to be considered securities. So hopefully they're able to really, you never know what's going to happen with this. I'm sure there's going to be a loose set of rules with this on the first iteration, and then they're going to have to make changes, as we go forward in the coming years and decades. One of the big things I saw in this, and you may have seen a video I did on Coinbase and the filing they did with the SEC, where they were stating that, hey, we're not really sure what's going to happen if in the unlikely event that we file bankruptcy, a judge can declare all of our deposits, which are customer money or customer funds, the judge can declare them as our assets and then use those assets in order to pay creditors, right? Obviously, that's an issue, right? For me, as somebody who has my funds on Coinbase, I don't like to hear that, right? I don't want to know that you might take my money and use it to pay your debts if you guys file bankruptcy, right? That's never a good thing. Nobody wants to hear that. This is going to give clarity to that finally. It's never been challenged in court, which is why there aren't really any laws on the books, but they're going to basically state in these laws that the funds that are on deposit in these exchanges and platforms belong to the customer. And that's a great thing. Obviously, this is something that definitely needs to be clarified, and there definitely needs to be rules and laws based on that. Now, some of the bad things you're going to have, obviously, with more regulation, things become slower. Developing new technologies and new financial instruments are going to be slower to develop because regulators are going to get involved and they're going to slow it down. It's going to be more costly. When you're moving money around on exchanges, the fees likely are going to be higher because those exchanges now have to cover the cost of regulation and coming into compliance. And that's something we can't avoid. I can definitely see that in the future. They're not going to be instituting these rules today or tomorrow or anytime soon. It's likely not going to be until next year where they start to sit down and discuss this and come up with some sort of a bilateral agreement on what everything means and what all the definitions are and taxes and things like that. Obviously, that's months, if not years. It could be 1 to 2 years before we even see the first iteration of this actually hit anybody's desk to sign. But do understand that over the next year or so, pay attention. I'm going to continue to do a series on this. Anytime something new comes out, any other ideas that are thrown out there on the table, I'm going to pick up. I'm going to do a video on it and explain how that might affect us in the crypto world. So pay attention. Okay. So when you're out there, you have your money out there, you need to pay attention to these rules and regulations going forward so that you can protect yourself just in case you understand, right? I might need to start pulling my money out of these individual projects and put it into something else before, the heavy-handed government comes down and slaps you. So that was the news today. It's not all bad news. There's no way we're going to get mass adoption, especially in the US, without regulation. It has to happen. I know there are those of you out there who are complete, I'm going to call you crypto traditionalists, right? Who you don't want regulation. You want it just to be the Wild West. You want to go back to 2010 and live in that time frame where nobody knew anything and you were pretty much allowed to do whatever you wanted. Those days are rapidly diminishing. Okay, we are going to come to a time where DeFi is going to be a very small market, especially in the US. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go outside of the US, but that means that those platforms that are acting like securities are not going to be allowed to participate in the US markets or interact with US customers without some sort of punitive damages. But think about this: as you hold Bitcoin or you hold Ethereum and you want those prices to go skyrocket so you can make some money, that's only going to happen one way and one way only. And that's regulation, and that's the large banking institutions of the world and of the US are going to get in and pour billions and billions of dollars into it. So don't be afraid. Regulation's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. I didn't always think that, right? This is a new thing for me. I understand going forward for this to become mass adopted throughout the world. Regulations is just a fact of life. You need to get over it. Okay, so I said at the end of this, I was going to tell you Binance had a bit of bad news. So the SEC, we were just talking about, decided they were going to investigate Binance and their BNB token, and are basically saying that their ICO, which is initial coin offering, which is just like an IPO for a company that's issuing stock for the first time, that back in 2017, they issued an ICO and basically issued it as a security. And quite honestly, they probably did. If you know me, you know I'm a huge XRP fan and holder. And the SEC is suing Ripple, who came up with XRP, and are trying to say that they sold theirs as a security back in 2013 when it came out. But they take it a step too far, and they're trying to say that every XRP token right now is a security, even on the secondary financial markets. So they're saying that I'm holding a security because I only bought it because I knew that Ripple was going to do some magic out there and make the price go up for XRP, which isn't the truth. When I bought XRP, I'd never even heard of the company Ripple. So that's a bit of bad news. And we did see their price dip today, but it bounced right back. So, and Binance is outside of the US. All the SEC can really do is just tell Binance if they don't want to come into some sort of compliance or pay the fine, which is probably what they're after, then they just can't do business in the US or with US citizens. Normally, the SEC only takes these cases on because they know they're going to settle and they just want that cash. That is the only reason. It doesn't solve any problem. And maybe they sold it as a security back in 2017, but today it's no longer a security. They're just trying to get money. It's a cash grab for the SEC. That's generally what they do because they're one of the most corrupt organizations in our government. And that I can guarantee you. So I hope you enjoyed this video on the introduction to a regulatory framework for crypto assets in the US, which has come finally. If you enjoyed this content, please give me a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. You guys have a great night.